Shalom, we'll get started in just one moment. All right, Shalom, Yahbashim Mashabrakatham, Yahushua Alatah Ba'Shem Yahushai. I'm priest and officer, Gabar Amath. We are ISUPK, Connecticut. ISUPK started out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under commanding General Yahana. Since 1969, we've been teaching the so-called blacks, so-called Hispanics, so-called Native Indians or First Nationers, the truth of the Bible, the truth of history, that we are the Israelites, God's chosen people, the apple of his eye, and our oppressor is the devil or deceiver, not the red suited, skinny or fat man or woman, horned with a tail. All right, that's not what the devil is. The devil is a deceiver. All right, that the Bible speaks of. Give me one moment just to put some things into the chat, if it may. And then we'll get started with today's topic, which is throwing away the garbage, which is Thanksgiving. Why do I say that? Because it is definitely garbage. Needs to be thrown away. All right. Not to be thankful, but the so-called holiday of Thanksgiving. And we'll get into why as well. I know for some people that is a very abrasive thing to say. And to you, I say, do your research. Look it up and see what it is you're actually celebrating. You'll be quite surprised and dismayed at yourself because you're choosing to celebrate something that something that goes against yourself. If you're Black, so-called Hispanic, so-called Native Indian, so-called. Just bear with me. Just bear with me. If you're in need of counsel, the number there is at the bottom of the screen, right here. Call 203-548-0040 for class info, questions, and or if you're in need of counsel. If you're going through something, you do not have to go through it alone. If you are in need of an ear, if you're in need of excellent advice, if you're in need of excellent counsel, call 203-548-0040 if you're in Connecticut. If not, go on isupk.com. All right. I will put these things into the chat and find a school that is near you. There's a list. Find a school that's near you. Call that number. All right. And learn and discover and learn true brotherhood and sisterhood in the ISUPK. Salakia. Yapasha Ira Yahawada, Shalom. Excuse me. Again, just bear with me while I put the attendance into the chat on both platforms. Come to class for 90 days, and after that, receive your Hebrew name. All right. One of the benefits that you receive by continuing to learn your heritage and your culture, you also get a name steeped in your culture and your heritage. All right. As an Israelite, the chat is in the YouTube chat. I'm sorry. The attendance sheet is posted for the YouTube chat. Just bear with me while I get to the Facebook, and then we will get started. So lock in. Labab and Yumyan, Shalom. Mariam Bath Yashikar, Shalom, sis. Again, just bear with me. Just putting in a couple things into the chat, and we'll get started. All right, let's boogie here. Again, I am Priest and Officer Gabar Amath. We're ISUPK Connecticut. ISUPK started out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under commanding General Yahana since 1969. We've been teaching the so-called Negro and Black, the so-called Latino and Hispanic, the so-called First Nationer, Native or First Native American Indian, because eventually our oppressor took on that guise as well, right? Which we're actually going to go into that history within the next 2 or 3 weeks. Go into the history um, of Connecticut and of the areas surrounding, like Massachusetts and New York, as well as New Jersey, the tri-borough area, as they call it. All right, or the tri-state area, Salakia. All right. So again, throwing away the garbage, which is Thanksgiving. And what does that do? That's going to show the Most High, right? That's going to show God that the so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians want to actually trust the laws of God. Because what are we showing God now? We're showing God a form of disloyalty, man. You would hate for your husband or wife to be this disloyal for this long, wouldn't you? You know what I'm saying? To where you go out and you find any manner of thing to occupy yourself with. Well, that's what Thanksgiving is. It is any manner of occupation of the mind and the body and the spirit. You understand? And what we've done as a people is we've learned to trust in the disgusting and the trifling and the vain customs of the other nations. And what we're going to do today is we're going to examine some of those things. We're also going to go over the history of Thanksgiving, because many of us don't know the history of Thanksgiving. If this is your first time being exposed to ISUPK, because this is your first class you're coming across, whatever the case is, even if it's not, you still might not be familiar with what Thanksgiving's about. And I'm going to go over that today. All right. Um, but first, let's get a couple scriptures. All right. Give me Psalms, Yapasha Yara, Baba Kasha, Psalms 146 and 3.
Okay.
The water. When you have it, you can start reading.
The book of Psalms, chapter 146, verse 3. Put not your trust in princes.
Do what?
Put not your trust in princes,
Put not your trust in princes. Go ahead.
nor in the Son of Man.
Nor in the Son of Man. Is that talking about Christ? No. That's talking about the children of men, right? That's talking about anyone that is a man, because again, our culture is based on men, right? Or based on the government which is ruled by men. Go ahead.
Okay. In whom there is no help.
And whom there is no help. Is there more?
Verse 4.
Read.
His breath goeth forth.
Uh-huh.
He returneth to his earth.
His breath goeth forth, he returneth to the earth. Go ahead.
And that very day his thoughts perish.
And that very day his thoughts perish. Because you go to that prince, you tell him something, and he don't care. It's gonna go right in one ear and out the other, because he's nothing vested in it for him. Drop that, give me Psalms 118 and 9. Psalms 118 and 9.
The book of Psalms, chapter 118, verse 9.
Uh-huh.
It is better to trust in the Most High.
It is better to trust in who?
The Most High.
It is better to trust in the Most High. That should be common sense. That should not have to be said. But in this day and age, and since Christ and before Christ, it has to be said. Since Adam, it has to be said, man. Because we haven't trusted in God in a very long time as a people, not collectively. Read that again.
Okay. It is better to trust in the Most High.
It is better to trust in the Most High. Go ahead.
Than to put confidence in princes.
Than to put confidence in princes. Again, men of the earth, men that are around, right? Men that you can see and touch and feel, and you can hate and you can love. Nah, man. It's better to put your trust in the Most High, whom you cannot see. Whom you can think you're talking to and maybe not be talking to. Who, you know what I'm saying? It's better to have faith in your God and put trust in that than to put trust in a man. Is there more?
Verse 10.
Read it and let's hear it.
All nations compass me about.
Do what?
All nations compass me about.
All nations are around me. Go ahead.
But in the name of the Most High will I destroy them.
But in the name of the Most High will I destroy them. You're not going to destroy them by following Thanksgiving. You're not going to destroy them by being participant in Christmas. You understand? You're not going to destroy anything if you don't have the backing of the Most High. And the Most High, why should he back you when he gave you high holy days and you choose to follow the genocide of a people that are your people, whom were genocided? You understand? I don't even know if that's a word. Who were killed. I'll just say it like that. Who were murdered. That's what it was. It was murder. You understand? By the oppressor. Read again. Read that again. Give me verse 10 again.
Okay. All nations compass me about.
All nations compass me about. But all these nations around here, Elam, you know what I'm saying? And let me tell you something. A lot of people are going to say, hey, they're all Hebrews too. But they're not Israelites. You understand? Our oppressor is a Hebrew, technically, isn't he? He comes from Iber or Eber. He comes from the Eber. Came over the river. But not everyone has the promise because the promise was given to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Those are not the sons of Jacob. The people of Jacob. Those aren't them. Elam is a Hebrew. Moab is a Hebrew. Ammon is a Hebrew. Esau is a Hebrew. But they're not Israelites, man. And in the contract, only Israel gets the blessing. You understand? Now, I'm going to read. Actually, we're going to drop that. Let's get Jeremiah 10 and 2. Let's go into Jeremiah real quick. Jeremiah chapter 10 and verse 2. And let's see what that says. Let's start at 1.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 10, verse 1.
Go ahead.
Hear ye the word which the Most High speaketh unto you.
Hear ye the word which Gabar speak.
Which the Most High speaketh unto you.
Officer Karayala speak.
Which the Most High speaketh unto
Captain
you.
Tazaryak speak.
Which the Most High speaketh unto you.
General Yohana speak.
Which the Most High speaketh unto you.
Read that one more time.
Hear ye the word which the Most High speaketh unto you, O house of Israel.
Israel, hear what God has to say. The men of the ISUPK are simply speaking what we read in the Bible, in the Torah, in the Tanakh, in the scriptures left to us by our ancestors to bring us out of the quagmire we have created for ourselves, to find a sanctuary amongst one another in this time, which is going to be trouble. You understand? Read again. Read that one more time.
Okay. Hear ye the word which the Most High speaketh unto you.
Hear ye the word which the Most High. If those of you who don't know who the Most High is, it is Yahweh. Speak unto you. O who?
O house of Israel.
O house of Israel. Not house of Esau. Not house of Moab. Not house of Elam. Not house of Ammon. Not house of Cush. None of those houses are being spoken to. Only who?
O house of Israel.
Only the house of Israel. That's important that we keep that in mind. Always keep that in mind. This Bible is not meant for everybody, man. This Bible is not meant for the world, as it is said colloquially, as it is said in layman's terms, meaning encompassing everything. It is meant for the world of the Negro, Hispanic, and so-called American Indian. It is meant for the world of the Israelite only, the house of Israel. You understand? Not for anybody else, man. If the Japanese, the Chinese, the Indian, the East Indian, right? If the Northern and Southern European, all right, the children of Esau, and the so-called African, if they want to partake in Thanksgiving, if they want to partake in all the other holidays, that's fine. They can do whatever they want. But if you are a Black, Hispanic, or Native Indian, after today, if you're watching this class or one of the many other classes that are taking place right now, all right, if you continue in Thanksgiving after you learn the truth of it, after you hear it read, all right, shame on you. Shame on you. It's for knowing better and not doing better. In the 21st century, 2021, about to be 2022, you would partake in the genocide of your people and have a feast to it. That being said, read.
Okay. Verse 2. Thus saith saith the Most High.
There it is again. It's not me. It's not Gabar Math. It's the Most High saying, go ahead.
Learn not the way of the heathen,
Learn not the way of the non-Israelites,
and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven.
and when you look up at the heavens, don't be like, ooh, I can see my astrological sign. I'm a Gemini. You know what I'm saying? Don't do that. Don't look up and be like, I have a duality about me. You know what I'm saying? I'm a Libra. I weigh things. Don't do that. Don't do none of that. Those things are foolish, man. Those things are foolish. Okay, they don't define who you are. You define who you are, not zodiacs. Okay? The heathen look up and they plan their whole life around what they see. We put action behind thought and make it happen. You understand? Go ahead.
For the heathen are dismayed at them.
For the heathen are dismayed. It makes them go off, man. They're like, what, man? And they stare and they stare and they write things down and they keep. Ain't nothing wrong with keeping records of things, right? But you can't let anything consume you to where you lose focus on what is important. Guess what's important? God. God. They heathen don't have gods. They have images, they have things, but the Most High made everything, and they don't even worship Him. They would rather worship rocks. You know what I'm saying? And fat men sitting in lotus position. You understand? Bald-headed fat men sitting in lotus position with huge earlobes. They like that. You know what I'm saying? They would rather worship the elephant-headed God. You know what I'm saying? That's crazy, man. They would rather worship the blue-skinned this, the gray-skinned that, and all manner of foolishness, man. All have a purpose. Don't get me wrong. I understand the iconography of it all, but they've lost focus on why they do what they do, and now they're worshiping those things as gods, man. You understand? They've lost the intelligence that comes with symbolism. And that's what we have to come out of, man. We have to come out of that foolishness. We got to come out of not following the laws of God to follow after men. That's what those princes were that she read about in two different verses, right? In Psalms 146 and 3, and in Psalms 118 and 9. That's talking about following after men. You understand? And we should be following after God. There's only one God on this earth, man, which is the Most High. You understand? Which is Yahweh. The God of the so-called Israelites is the only God. He's the God that created everything. And he wants to be worshipped by his people first. So his people can rule the earth. And, and those who want to keep following foolishness, put them underfoot. You understand? Keep reading.
Okay. For the customs of the people are vain.
For what?
The customs of the people are vain.
For the customs of the people are vain. Salaki, 1 second. Salakia. Just bear with me one more moment. Slovakia. Almost there. Many of our people don't understand. Read that last verse again.
Okay. For one cutteth a tree
No,
out.
last verse.
Oh, suck the other one. The work of the hands of the
No,
workman.
no. Read the verse before, is what I'm saying.
Okay. Thus saith the Most High.
Thus saith the Most High.
Learn not the way of the heathen.
Don't learn the way of the nations round about you. The ones that are not Israelites, don't learn their ways.
And be not dismayed at the signs of heaven.
And don't be dismayed at the signs of heaven. Go ahead.
For the heathen are dismayed at them.
For who?
The heathen.
Are what?
Are dismayed at them.
For the heathen are dismayed at them. For the people round about you that are not close to God, that are not the children of Israel, they're dismayed at things like that. Okay? Drop that. And what we're doing now is we're establishing a foothold, right? To show that the Lord doesn't want you to celebrate Thanksgiving. Okay? And let's really get that in Amos 5:20. Let's get that there. Amos 5:20 is going to slam base that home. It's going to hit that home run.
The book of Amos, chapter 5, verse 20.
Uh-huh.
Shall not the day of the Most High be darkness and not light?
Shall not the day of who?
The Most High be darkness?
Does it say Most High?
As capital Lord.
Okay. Go ahead.
Be darkness and not light?
Shall not the day of the Lord be darkness and not light? Many of our people think that that day is going to be filled with sunlight and shiny things, and it's going to be a warm day. You're going to smell the lilies and the roses over your nose, and that's not true. That's not true. Because and how we know it's not true, because the Bible is defining that day right here. Read it again.
Shall not the day of the Most High be darkness and not light?
Shall not the day of the Most High, the judgment, right? Go ahead.
Even very dark and no brightness in it?
Shall not the day of the Most High be
darkness and not light?
Darkness and not light. That's talking about a day that's going to be very bleak, right? It's not going to be that nice thing that you think is supposed to happen on the day of judgment. You know what I'm saying? A lot of us are going to be judged harshly because we have not been doing what the Most High wants us to do. We've been doing what we've wanted to do. And that's what that's saying. Shall not that day be dark? Are you going to tell me that you following all the laws? You know what I'm saying? You sneak bacon into your sandwiches. You know what I'm saying? When you go to McDonald's, you're like, oh, when you order your sandwich, it's got to have bacon. When you go get your breakfast sandwich, they don't even offer a non-pork option, and you're there every day getting that sandwich. They don't even offer a non-pork option. You make no effort. You make no effort whatsoever in your life, right, to follow the dietary laws. You make no effort in your life to follow the spiritual things of God. You understand? To pray how he says pray, to think how he says think. You don't make any effort to open your Bible to seek out the things of God. You make no effort to hold that and go to Zephaniah 2:1. You make no effort to do this. So simple, something so simple as to coming into your people and coming together. You don't even do that. And that's the most basic part of raising a nation. And we're supposed to be raising the nation of God. You make no effort. You sit at home by yourself thinking that you're going to somehow be included. And that's a fool. you're not going to be included in anything except the destruction that takes place. Shall not the day of the Lord be dark and no light in it? You understand? And we need to truly understand that, man. We take God for granted. You know what I'm saying? We go on sinning and lying to one another, treating each other bad, man, treating each other with no care, shooting each other, killing each other, and then our oppressor is also lying to us, shooting us. We got no loyalty even to ourselves, man. A gang of fools, that's what we are. Read that.
Gather yourselves together.
This is Zephaniah 2:1. You don't even make the effort to do this, and this is a commandment. Read it again.
Gather yourselves together.
Zephaniah 2:1 says, gather yourselves together. How can you gather in the army of one? Huh? How are you gathering together in your house by yourself? Or you chilling with your family, but you don't come into the congregation of the Lord? And there's only one, which is the ISUPK. You won't come into the ISUPK, to the Israelite School of Universal and Practical Knowledge, because you are a coward and don't want to go and teach. Because you think, oh, I'll be all right. Don't worry about me. Meanwhile, you got brothers out here struggling and suffering, and in a structured body like this, you can make such a difference, man. But you won't do that. You won't do it. You would rather sit at home tomorrow and eat that turkey with your family, who you see once or twice a year on a holiday, right? That talk shit behind your back the rest of the year. That lives a life of decadence and disgustingness, and you would rather sit with them, right? Instead of coming around the men and women of the Lord that are actually trying to make their lives better by getting closer to their God and at least trying to follow the commandments. At least they're trying. You would rather sit and watch football and get to know them again, your immediate or extended family, whatever the case is, as you sin against your God with everybody in that room, because you ain't supposed to be there. And I'm going to read an article about Thanksgiving, the history of Thanksgiving, and how it doesn't even have to do with thanking God for anything. No, I'm sorry. It does have to do with thanking God for something, but it has nothing to do with what they say it does. It has nothing to do with the Puritans being helped by the Indians. Nothing that you learned in school is true. But I'm going to read the article, and you're going to hear the truth today. And since we're on that, let's get into that, okay? Salakia. I'm going to read the article. This is a historical events article from a website called History Colored. And the article is by Mark Unruh, and it was written October 4th in 2020. Every year in late November, America gathers together and celebrates Thanksgiving. Family and friends share a meal while giving thanks for the turkey, for the good fortune, and often for the United States of America. Children are told by their parents and grandparents the story and history of Thanksgiving. Long ago, when the Pilgrims landed, they worked together with the Native American inhabitants of the continent to survive and eventually flourish. They cemented their friendship through a grand feast after a successful year's harvest. As the years passed, the Pilgrims continued to prosper, and the Native American inhabitants slowly faded into the margins of history. But the original friendship between the two groups have lived on in the annual Thanksgiving holiday, a tradition that connects the Pilgrims to Americans today. That is the lie. This story, of course, almost a complete myth. The true history of Thanksgiving is far more complex and brutal. It is true that the Pilgrims and their native Wampanoag allies participated in a large feast in the autumn of 1621. It is unlikely, however, that the Pilgrims viewed it as a thanksgiving. As for the recently arrived Pilgrims, Thanksgiving was a religious observance centered around fasting. Now, again, you're telling the history tells us that the Pilgrims got together and had a feast and called it Thanksgiving when the pilgrims themselves would have, if they wanted to have Thanksgiving, they would have fasted, not feasted. What is fasting? Fasting is not partaking in food. You understand? To hold back from something, to not do something, not to feast. Again, I'm going to read that part again. As for the recently arrived pilgrims, a Thanksgiving was a religious observance centered around fasting and prayer. Instead, the feast was more akin to a party with games and food for all. The tradition of such celebrations at the end of harvest season is far older than the 17th century. The Greeks, Romans, and Egyptians, as well as the Hebrews and Chinese cultures of antiquity, all possessed some fashion of celebration at the end of harvest season. But the Thanksgiving of 1621 was not an ordinary feast. The pilgrims did have something to celebrate: their very survival. Since they had landed a year earlier, half of their number had died to the harsh climate and starvation. They had not come prepared to survive. Because the latitude of their landing was similar to southern England and the Netherlands, they had expected the climate to be as forgiving. Instead, they suffered through a harsh New England winter and were not prepared for the spring that followed. It was only through the friendship of the nearby Wampanoag tribe that they were able to grow the food they needed. What the Pilgrims did not know was that their alliance with the Wampanoag was only because the local politics between the Native American tribes led the Wampanoag to ally with the English settlers. They were dwindling in numbers. And because of the local politics, they had the Wampanoag made a very grave decision to ally themselves with the newcomers who were the Pilgrims. Okay? In the years leading up to the landing of the Pilgrims, an epidemic had wiped out between 75 and 90% of the Wampanoag. This greatly weakened their position in the area. And why? Why is that? Because just like, listen, this government is very much fashioned after the governments that were already on this continent. So your numbers gave you more power to say. You understand? And their numbers were dwindling because they had died off. I mean, between 75 and 90%, that's a lot. Most of their people had perished. Again, this greatly weakened their position in the area. And with the surrounding tribes threatening, again, because they were parrying for land. Okay? This greatly weakened their position in the area, and with the surrounding tribes threatening, they were forced to seek alliance with the English. This could not have been easy. The Pilgrims only survived the harsh winter of 1620 to 21 by looting the graves of buried Wampanoag. Now, when I was in school, we learned that those settlers ate the bodies of the Wampanoag as well. I learned that in school. I'm not telling you that from my own mind. That's what I learned from the curriculum of West Hartford, Connecticut. Here, where I am now. I'm in Hartford now. But through the West Hartford curriculum, I learned that the settlers had to cannibalize the local Indians' graves in order to sustain themselves as well. But listen to what this says. Because again, the oppressor is writing this as well. It says, Pilgrims had only survived the harsh winter of 1620 to 21 by looting the graves of buried Wampanoag, who were often buried with food in accordance with their customs. And because of the epidemic, these graves were plentiful. Some historians question whether the Pilgrims would have been able to establish their colony without the epidemic. Now, listen to that. They would bury their dead with gourds and different things like that. They would do that. But most cultures bury their dead with trinkets and items. Again, we have to question some of this right here, and we'll take some of it with a grain of salt because, again, in desperate times, many Europeans were robbing and going into graves and doing that in Europe, grave robbing and eating the bodies, as well as in Egypt as well, because they felt like the bodies gave them spiritual power as well. Okay? So this is the custom that is not new. Some historians question whether the Pilgrims would have been able to establish their colony without the epidemic, without the 75 to 90% of death that took place. As the land they arrived, Slovakia, as the land they arrived in was occupied by now deceased Wampanoag only a few years later. The Wampanoag, led by a man named Usamaquin, established a treaty with the Pilgrims that lasted for 50 years. It was Usamaquin, more commonly known by his title Massasoit, that was present at the first Thanksgiving of 1621, eating and drinking with the very same people who had defiled his people's graves less than a year earlier. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? That was the beginning of the end right there. This man is sitting with people that ate from the graves of his people who had been decimated, man. Who only 10%, including himself, had survived. Let's continue. It could not have been easy, but the Wampanoag needed the English as allies, as they traded good steel tools in exchange for furs, which were so plentiful that the Wampanoag viewed them as almost useless. But as the years passed, tensions grew, and the colonists continued to arrive and expand. The Wampanoag and other nearby Native American tribes were slowly pushed back, and things finally reached a boiling point when Usamaquin died. His son, Metacom, called King Philip by the English, led his people to resist the English. Now, again, I'm in Connecticut. There is a King Philip Middle School. There is a Metacomet, because that was his name, Metacomet. Metacomet Elementary School. There are names, these names are all throughout New England, almost as a way to commemorate these people locally, right? So these people are remembered by schools named after them, streets named after them, waterways named after them, local government buildings named after them is very prevalent in the area. All right. And the local children learn about this story here in its entirety, truth in the area. Okay. His son Metacom, called King Philip by the English, led his people to resist the English, and open warfare broke out. King Philip's War, as it is known, lasted from 1675 to 1676 and ended when Metacom was killed, dismembered, and his head planted on a spike by the colonists, who left it there for over a decade. And let me tell you how long they left it there. They left it there for 25 years, for 2 decades and a half. That was a reminder to all the locals to stay in your place. This could be you. Roman and Greek custom, right there. This is not the happy history of Thanksgiving that most Americans were taught about. Additionally, it was not yet a regular holiday. There were no regular yearly celebrations in late November commemorating the survival of the Pilgrims and their friendship with the local Native Americans. It was not until 1863, during the height of the Civil War, that Abraham Lincoln established Thanksgiving as a federal holiday to be celebrated on the last Thursday of every November. Although decades earlier, George Washington had declared the last Thursday of November a day of national Thanksgiving, it was only for that year. And this is why, and listen up, Thanksgiving originated right here. And he was giving thanks for the Constitution. Thanksgiving was made a holiday by Abraham Lincoln But first, it was made on last Thursday by George in November by George Washington, who was thanking for the Constitution of America. Not the landing of the Pilgrims. Lincoln's declaration was not a natural, organic remembrance of the early Pilgrims, but the result of a decades long campaign by Sarah Josepha Hale. Sarah, an author and poet whose best known work is Mary Had a Little Lamb. Okay, she's writing children's stories, man. All right, and making up holidays. Wrote editorials, letters, and articles for 36 years in her attempt to make Thanksgiving a national federal holiday. For her successful effort, she became known as the mother of Thanksgiving. Salakia. Thanksgiving has largely remained the same since the time of Lincoln. It was only in 1939 that Franklin Roosevelt attempted to change things by moving it a week earlier, from the 4th to the 3rd Thursday of November. He was attempting to boost retail sales during the Great Depression. Again, what does this have to do? This don't got nothing to do with you, so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian. It had to do with the Constitution, which you were not part of. It had to do with the Civil War, which they say was a fight over you, but it wasn't. It was a fight over control of the land. And now you're hearing that it was a fight to keep retail sales up during that time of year, because the Great Depression wiped out the economy. But his attempt was largely mocked, with the people diversely referring to derisively. I'm going to say the typo. Divisively referring to the new holiday date as Franksgiving. Many Americans refuse to even acknowledge the change. And so 2 years later, in 1941, Roosevelt reversed his decision and moved Thanksgiving back to the 4th Thursday of November. It has remained there ever since. There it is. That is the history of Thanksgiving. As we know, many diseases followed the first pilgrims when they came. The Indians, the so-called Indians, their bodies were not used to some of the things that came over with them on those ships. So the Wampanoag might have suffered from the fact that the English settlers were there to begin with. You understand? Because scouts always come first. The full ship of people don't come until after the scouts come and let them know it's okay. That's how shipping and ship sailing and that's how that goes. You understand? But again, we're trusting in the princes, and we should be trusting in the power so that we can be the princes of the power. Yasharallah. You understand? What verse were we on? What were we reading?
Zephaniah chapter 2, verse 1.
Again,
I was on 2.
a lot of you brothers and sisters, it's like you don't want to get up off your asses and do nothing about nothing, man. But you'll go and stuff your face tomorrow, man. You'll go and get it in on some turkey, you know what I'm saying, on some stuffing, on some delicious canned, what's that, cranberry sauce? Delicious canned cranberry sauce that takes the shape of the can. You know what I mean? You're looking forward to falling asleep while the football game's playing, while you sip on something or drink a beer. after the house smells like cakes and cookies. You know what I'm saying? And again, a lot of our people are just stuck on the traditions of doing it. You understand? We're stuck on the nostalgia that comes with it. But let me tell you something, man. The oppressor knows who we are. And when they sit down, they are celebrating the genocide of your people because they're lifting up the fact that their people are able to be here on this land. You are the American Indian. You are the Latino of Central and South America. You are them. You are they. You are the Negro. They found some of us here, man. And others of us were brought here by force. 700 million, more than that probably, but 700 million, it could be said, of our people, the Black Hispanics and Native Indians, were killed, man. And I'm saying that in conjunction, in accordance to the Indian, because we are the same people. We are one nation of people. So if 700 million Gadites are killed, that's still an Israelite. And I'm an Israelite, and 700 million of my people were killed. If you call yourself a Cherokee Indian, you know you're a Cherokee in your past, a Wampanoag, uh, Massasoit, which ended up being a tribe. That's where Massachusetts comes from. You know what I'm saying? Massapequot, Pequot, um, Mohegan, uh, Wachita, Wakipsit. If you're any tribe, if you're any tribe and you know where, and you know your grandparents, we're talking about that. We're following traditions. We're going to powwows. And you sit down with your so-called friends and you celebrate the genocide of your own people, shame on you, man. And shame on you for not trusting in God. You understand? Shame on you for not coming in the body of the Lord, which is the ISUPK, and learning your heritage again, man, and being proud of who you are, so that you don't celebrate your own death. So that you celebrate, you learn to celebrate the life in which you find in here. You understand the life that is in that Bible, the quickening that can happen to you, the giving of life, which is this walk right here. You understand? That's what this is. This is the finding of something that you've forgotten. Your culture, your heritage, your pride. You got to come out of all these things, man. You got to come out of Christmas. You got to come out of Thanksgiving. Don't even touch Easter. Pick up some Passover. You know what I'm saying? Come together with your people and celebrate the destruction of your enemies. You understand? And stop being so weak as to always want to do what the women in your family want to do, which is get together so they can cook. Guess what? They can do that all year long. You understand? They can do that on a high holy day. They can do that then, and they should. And they should on a high holy day. And for you, those of you who don't know what the high holy days are, I'm going to tell you, okay? The Sabbath is a high holy day. Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. Passover, Feast of Unleavened Bread, Feast of First Fruits, Memorial Blowing of Trumpets, Day of Atonement, Feast of Tabernacles, Feast of the Dedication, also called Hanukkah, Purim. Those are our high holy days. You understand? not Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is a celebration of the genocide of your people, black men, Hispanic men, and Native Indian men, women, and children. And you should not celebrate it, man. You should come out from amongst these people. Come out from amongst the celebrations that they want to give you. Give me Salakia. Revelation 18:4.
Okay. The book of Revelations, chapter 18, verse 4. And I heard another voice from heaven.
Salakia. We're going to get that right after. Give me Jeremiah first. Give me Jeremiah 51 and 45. Jeremiah 51 and 45. Let's get that one first. Jeremiah 51 and 45. Because we were in Jeremiah before. 10 and 1, starting at 2, or 10 and 2, going to 5. And now we're going to go back to Jeremiah. We were in Jeremiah 17 and 5 as well. So give me that.
Okay. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 51, verse 45.
Go ahead.
My people,
go
ye out of the midst of her.
Go ye out of the midst of her. Her being America, the daughter of Babylon, the one that is just like her, just like that old place that got destroyed, man, the 5 cities of Babylon, that had to be taken down because of its whoredom, because of the homosexuality and lesbianism going on, because of all the disgusting things the Lord didn't want to go on were going on. And this is the daughter of that. Go ahead.
And deliver ye every man his soul.
And deliver ye every man his soul. Go ahead.
From the fierce anger of the Most High.
From the fierce anger of the Most High, because if you keep celebrating Thanksgiving, there's going to be a day where you're going to have to pay for it by your God. You understand? You don't celebrate the genocide of your people, man. You don't do that. That is not our culture. You understand? I don't know whose culture that is. Whose culture celebrates their own genocide? I don't know of any. Yet the Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian, we're doing it. Go ahead.
Verse 46. Unless your heart faint, and ye fear for the rumor that shall be heard in the land. A rumor shall both come 1 year, and after that in another year shall come a rumor.
There'll be rumors about you. Go ahead.
And violence in the land.
And violence in the land. Let me tell you something. Man. You're not going to get away from the judgment which is coming, man. Like we read before, is not the day of the Lord dark? You know what I'm saying? And no brightness in it. There's no light in that day. And the God is coming with anger, and he's coming with vengeance because our people were genocided. And he's coming to give us retribution and to save us as a people. But only when we come together, like we read in Zephaniah 2 and 1. You know what I'm saying? Now give me the revelation. What I say? Revelation what? 18 and 4?
Okay.
Go ahead. Let's get that.
The book of Revelation, chapter 18, verse 4.
Go ahead.
And I heard another voice from heaven saying.
And I heard another voice from heaven saying.
Come out of her.
Come out of her.
My people.
My people. Here it is again in Revelations. Go ahead.
That ye be not partakers of her sin.
That ye be not partakers of her sins. It is a sin to establish a city in blood. It is a sin. That land will stay defiled. It is a sin for us to mix physically and to marry with our oppressors. It is a sin to mate and marry with the other nations in general. It is a sin for you to to not know your culture, man. We're supposed to be learning these laws, teaching these laws, learning these laws. You understand? We have laws to follow, over 600. Do you know more than the 10? Keep reading.
Okay. And that ye receive not of her plagues.
Because this place is going to be plagued. And the Bible says what? Read it again.
Okay. And I heard another
No,
voice.
read exactly what you just read.
Okay. And that ye receive not of her plagues.
And that ye receive not of her plagues. The Lord doesn't want us to receive those plagues. He doesn't want us to have to go through that. He's giving us all opportunity to come out of her, and the warning itself, come out of her, my people. He's letting you know, come out of her, my people. Before the day of the Lord come, you know what I'm saying? Like, come on, man. It's a choice right here to be made. The choice is what it is, man. You might miss Thanksgiving. You might feel funny the first 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years maybe. But let me tell you something, man. It gets easier every time. It gets easier and easier not to celebrate your birthday. It's just a day that passes, man. It ain't no thing. You know what I'm saying? It's easy. Because at least you're doing what God wants you to do. And you're going to see the benefits of that. You're going to see the benefits of not self-worshiping. You're going to see the benefits of not worshiping the death of your people. You're going to see the benefits of not doing the sinful things that Christmas is about. The Bible specifically tells you not to go into the woods, not to cut a tree down and put it up in your house, not to deck it with silver and gold. I mean, it goes specifically telling you what not to do so that you know it's talking about what it's talking about. But how many of us pick up this Bible, man? Listen, come into the ISUPK. You will learn this thing the way it's meant to be learned, man, without the religious overtones. This is a book of law. No different than when you go to court. It's that kind of law. It's laws like that, black and white. There's no spookiness about it, man. The only thing spooky is you. The only thing spooky is your inability to come out of your habits. Change your life, man. Change your life for the better. You know what I'm saying? Change your life. Find God. You've lost the God. You've lost God. Everybody, when they're down and out, prays. You know that? Everybody prays when you're down and out and the world is coming against you. You'll pick your hands up to pray then. But when you think you're doing well, you stop. We all do it. We all did it. We all have done it. Excuse me. We all have done it. But it's time to stop that. It's time to find loyalty. You want to be loyal to your husband, to your wife, to your children. You're nothing without God, man. Be loyal to God first. And the Lord will reward you with what he needs you to have. That's my time. I am Priest and Officer Barmath, ISUPK, Connecticut. We are ISUPK, so out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Yohana since 1969. We've been teaching the so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians their true culture and heritage, that we are the Israelites, and our oppressors, the devil the Bible speaks of. Until next class, Shalom, Israel.